I thought it was a promotion. That's the first thing I remember thinking when I saw the folded piece of paper tucked under my windshield wiper in the mall parking lot. I almost didn't stop for it. I almost kept walking. But I pulled it out, unfolded it, and started reading. And by the second sentence, I had stopped moving entirely. When a mother has no way to feed her child, when the father has money and refuses to provide, a mother leaves a note like this: "My son is your husband's child. For the last 9 months he has stopped supporting him. This is not a scam. This is not the wrong car. Tell him his son needs him." I lifted my head and looked around the parking lot. Rows of cars, strangers moving through them, nobody looking back at me. Whoever had left this was already gone. Quick pause before we go further. This channel runs on your signal. The algorithm won't move without it. Like, subscribe. One action right now means everything. Now let's get back into it. I got in the car. I sat there for a moment without starting the engine. The note was still in my hand and I was reading it again. Not because I hadn't understood it the first time, but because I am someone who needs to be certain before I move in any direction. I read it a third time. Then I put it in my bag and drove home. The whole way back, I checked my rearview mirror. If she knew which car was mine, she had been watching me. That thought sat with me the entire drive, not with fear, but with the particular alertness of someone who has just understood that a situation is more deliberate than it first appeared. She hadn't made a mistake. She hadn't guessed. She had found me. Dwayne was on the couch when I got home. Netflix on, completely relaxed. The face of a man with nothing on his conscience. I said hello. I made myself move through the house normally, put my things down, went to the kitchen, kept my hands busy. Inside, my mind was already working. 12 years of marriage. I turned the number over while I stood at the counter. 12 years, and I had never, not once, had a reason to question him. I had told him early in our marriage, clearly without drama or ultimatum energy, infidelity was the one condition I would not negotiate around, would not recover from, would not find a way to reframe as something survivable. I had said it plainly enough that there was no room for misunderstanding. He had heard me. He had agreed, with the ease of a man who either meant it completely or had simply decided in that moment that he did. I needed to know if the note was real before I did anything else. That night, after Dwayne went to bed, I sat down and started looking. The state records births by the father's name. I found that out quickly. The problem was access. Without a direct family connection, the state would give me nothing. I needed another way in. I thought about the genealogy platforms, the ones people use to trace family lines, to find relatives, to map out bloodlines they've spent years trying to locate. If this woman had ever entered her son's information anywhere, if she had ever tried to find Dwayne's family, document the connection, establish any kind of record that might one day matter in a courtroom or a child support hearing, it might be sitting there, accessible, waiting. I created an account. I sat at my desk in the quiet of my own house, my husband asleep down the hall, and I entered Dwayne's name. I want to tell you that I was composed during this. I want to tell you I approached it the way I approach most things, methodically, without letting feeling get ahead of information. That would not be entirely true. My hands were not steady. My chest was tight in a way that made breathing feel like something I had to consciously instruct myself to do. I kept telling myself it could be someone else. Same name, different man, different city, different life. The world is full of people who share names, And this could simply be one of those cases where the overlap means nothing. I kept searching. I kept telling myself that. I tried several variations, several angles of entry into the database, the way you do when you're hoping a different door will open onto a different room. Then I found him. A boy. 9 years old. The surrounding data fit Dwayne with a precision that coincidence doesn't produce. The timing, the location, details that aligned too specifically to be dismissed as noise. I sat with my face close to the screen, reading the same entry over and over. My forehead cold, my hands trembling slightly against the desk. I asked God quietly, in the space between one breath and the next, to let this not be what it looked like. The information did not change. I understood what I was looking at. I understood what it meant, not just for my marriage, but for the entire architecture of the last decade plus of my life. A child who was 9 years old had been conceived during my marriage, had been born during my marriage, had existed somewhere, running parallel to everything I believed I was living. And Dwayne had known. For 9 years, across every birthday, every anniversary, every ordinary evening on that couch, he had known. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark for a while. Not crying, not yet anything. Just sitting with the full weight of it, before I decided what to do next. I contacted her. I'll keep the details brief because they don't matter. What matters is that we met in a fast food restaurant on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, and she showed me everything, not just the child, the bank transactions, 9 years of payments, and not a single one coming directly from Dwayne. Every transfer had moved through Robert, his brother, the man who had come to my home for Christmas, for Thanksgiving, for birthdays and ordinary Sunday dinners, who had sat at my table, eaten my food, looked me in the eye, and smiled without a trace of discomfort. Robert had known from the day that child was born. He had structured the concealment himself, routing the payments, keeping Dwayne's name off the paper trail, building a financial distance between my husband and anything that might one day surface. 9 years, every holiday included. You eventually prepare yourself, somewhere in the back of your mind, for what a spouse might be capable of. Nobody prepares for the brother. I left that restaurant and went directly to a lawyer, then to a forensic accountant, someone who specializes in tracing financial movement across accounts, finding connections between transactions designed not to be found. What they established over the following weeks was a clear and documented line between Dwayne's accounts, Robert's accounts, and 9 years of payments to a child Dwayne had never acknowledged to me. They mapped every transfer, every routing decision, every carefully structured distance between Dwayne's name and the money that bore it. By the time they finished, there was nothing left to interpret. The total across all balances, accounts, investments, assets, came to $2.3 million. I want to be precise about what happened next, because precision was exactly what it required. I didn't confront Dwayne. I didn't give him the opportunity to construct a story, to prepare himself, to move anything before I was ready. I had everything I needed, and I moved when I decided to, not when emotion pushed me to. The divorce papers were served to him at the house. I knew he was home. I opened the front door myself. Dwayne, someone's at the door. I stayed in the hallway. I wanted to see his face when he read it. I watched him take the papers, watched him process what they were, watched him look up at me still standing there in my own home. He knew immediately what the stated grounds were. There was no confusion on his face. Just the particular collapse of a man who has been found completely, the specific expression of someone realizing the story they thought was still protected, has already been read by the one person who mattered. Then he did what people do when they have nothing left. He told me it had only happened once. His arms came toward me, reaching, the way people reach when they are about to beg. And he begged. He told me he would do anything. He said 12 years couldn't end like this, that I owed it to us to hear him out, that he was sorry in ways he didn't have words for yet. He was the most tender, most present, most attentive version of himself he had been in years, which told me everything I needed to know about what the last 12 years had actually cost him emotionally. Nothing. Until this moment. I told him I had already given him his one chance, every time I had told him clearly what I would not accept. That had been the chance. It wasn't a new offer. It was the same one he had already spent. His lawyer objected to my demands in the settlement meeting. The house, fully paid, equity belonging entirely to him by the numbers. The full $2.3 million across all accounts. His lawyer called it unreasonable. Mine was very calm and very brief in her response. She noted that Robert had received money for 9 years that had never been reported to the IRS, that the state had a specific interest in that we could absolutely take this to court if they preferred, and that this state, given the documented infidelity and the financial concealment spanning nearly a decade, would likely find itself far more sympathetic to the wronged spouse than to the one who had spent 9 years hiding a child and routing money through his brother to do it. There was a pause in the room after that, a long one. We negotiated. I want to be honest, I didn't take everything, not because I couldn't have pressed harder, but because I had already decided that speed mattered more than total extraction. Every additional month of litigation was another month of my life attached to something I was finished with. I left with $2 million and the house. Clean. Final. Over. My name is Ruth. And my life started over at 47.
Like and subscribe for more stories like this. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update.